All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Amaze the Storyteller. We're back at it again. I corrected my mistakes from last stream. We're going to be talking about the Holy Knights versus battles, all about One Piece. So join us in the chat. Make sure you're tapping away. I'll open it on my phone in a second because I'm technologically illiterate. Deal with it. I'm dealing with it, so I'm sorry. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about today with the Holy Knights situation. Okay, Summers, that weird yokai looking guy that can create nightmares, and the other one that has the devil tails that seems to be able to kill everybody with them. That young lady, I forget what their names are off the top of my dome, but essentially those individuals are supposed to be the highest authority and the highest branded warrior within the world government. And I think that's dope. I think what Oda's doing with that has essentially replaced the excitement of the Seven Warlords and given us something more to focus on during the Elbaf arc. Another thing with the Elbaf arc that has totally redefined my way of thinking while watching One Piece, it's really hilarious to me. But with the Elbath arc, dude, I remember watching Marineford and like all of the giants. And this is what I'm getting to, just bear with me. All of the giants in Elbath, you just look at them and you're like, oh, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna get smashed like Whitebeard smashed the shit out of every single Vice Admiral giant that existed. But you have to remember, giants are overpowered as shit, okay? Elbath is the strongest country in the world. And this isn't just headcanon. That's stated by Big Mom herself. If she had the power of Elbath on her side, she would have taken over the world. And it's true. Giants are overpowered just by being born. And Noda, he had to write it in a way that nerfed him way back in Marineford, and that's why we're like, oh, Giants, whatever, Dory and Broggy, whatever. But Dory and Broggy have extreme hockey, dude. They may not have conquerors, but they do have some sort of like Rio versioned hockey. When they blasted away Kid's ship and killed essentially everyone on Kid's crew, I'm assuming, dude, Dory and Broggy are overpowered. They're all overpowered, okay? But the Holy Knights, going back to Summers and his Vine Fruit ability, dude, it's insane. They. I need to take a breath because I'm about to lose my shit in excitement, guys. The Holy Knights are just overpowered. What are you going to do to them? There's nothing you can do to the highest echelon, and that's what we need. We need a threat that big. There's also something else I want to address. While we're talking about the Holy Knights, you have to remember that when you have a giant fighting force, essentially an infantry like the Holy Knights, right? Now that we're on this new playing field, I saw some shit about Zoro versus Lucci. Okay, I want to be very clear about something. Lucci is a good match for Zoro. Not because of how strong Zoro is, but because Lucci was overpowered pre-time skip. You have forgotten, if you think that Zoro smacks Lucci, how devastating Lucci was pre-time skip. He almost killed Lucci almost killed Luffy. There was no hope for Zoro in the pre-time skip arcs. Lucci would have stomped Zoro 1,000 times over. Zoro has gotten stronger, yes. He has extreme hockey, yes, but so does Lucci, dude. That's how Lucci awakened his zone to the point where he's become essentially a feral god. Okay, Lucci's on a similar par to Gear 5th, and so him taking on Zoro with those power buffs is not absurd. It's absurd that you think that Zoro stomps somebody who has an awakened zone on top of Conqueror's hockey and Rio hockey, which Lucci does have. That's how he was able to keep up with Luffy in the first place. And if you don't think he does, go back and reread the chapters and watch the illustrations that Oda puts on Lucci when he's fighting Gear 5th Luffy. It definitely points to Rio or some type of advanced armament, and that's how Lucci was able to keep up with Gear 5. I'm not saying Lucci went bar for bar, okay? But Lucci definitely kept up in his own way. Now, back to the Holy Knights conversation. Dude, the Holy Knights are insane. Summers is insane. I'm excited to see Summers and his history. He's probably the one I'm most excited about. That yokai looking guy with the dreams. He's cool, but he's one of those characters that I feel gets overhyped. I like characters who are mundane in a world as crazy as One Piece. Does that make sense? Like, I really like Doberman. Doberman was dope. He was like a regular ass dude that could sword fight a little bit, was badass, yelled, had super commanding skills. Dope. Summers is very similar. Now, Summers is overpowered, let's be honest, okay? Excuse me. Dispatching Saul like he was nothing is crazy work. That being said, the Holy Knights being the uppermost echelon of the warriors with Marijois makes sense to me, right? You use the Marines to kind of maintain the balance and order within the One Piece world, and then the Holy Knights are the ones that dispatch the top level pirates. Because otherwise, how do you maintain order? You have the Seven Warlords as privateers that help maintain that balance, but the Holy Knights being the apex of what it is to be a celestial dragon is pretty damn cool to me. And they're immortal, which is dope. Like, that's fucking awesome. I think we need that level of threat because that's where we're at. And with every anime, it ends up this way. And it does bother me, but that's a conversation for another day. Where you start off, for the most part as a regular human, and then you just get power buffed to the point where you're just fucking a god, right? You're like interplanetary destruction. You're just like able to destroy everything continental wise. And that's essentially what One Piece has become, right? Look at the battle against Luffy in Gear 5th versus Kaido. I mean, those dudes were destroying continents pretty easily, pretty effortlessly. So, that being said, the Holy Knights are probably on a similar level where they're able to do that, and you can't have those guys just stomping around whenever. You have to make it an event, and that's what God Valley led us to. God Valley is essentially the holding cell for the Holy Knights to cut loose against strong pirates. So, what I think would be interesting with the Holy Knights is seeing what their actual duties are, because it is kind of weird that in all of One Piece we haven't seen any mention of Holy Knights prior to the time skip. And I think there's a few reasons for that. Number one, I think the plans for One Piece, obviously I think One Piece has progressed past the point Oda expected it to. And two, I think revealing the Holy Knights too early might have been the same waste as introducing Crocodile too early. You know what I mean? Because everyone thinks Crocodile is super fucking weak because pre-time skip Luffy dished him out. But in reality, pre-time skip Crocodile is overpowered and had to have some type of debuff in order for Luffy to get ahead, which was water. And like, I feel like the Holy Knights being introduced pre-time skip would have had a similar clause. Or all their abilities couldn't be unveiled. Just like hockey. You guys remember hockey pre-time skip? It was just like a statement, you know? You didn't have this like animation for it or this blacked out like flex really hard. You didn't have that yet. You just had like, oh my god, he's using hockey one way. And like that's cool. That's cool. Anyway, the Holy Knights are dope. Summers is my favorite. The yokai looking guy's weird. He's fine, whatever. And the chick is fine. She's cool. She's also the one that killed Cobra. If you didn't know that, there you go. I'm gonna make a video about that because people missed that for some reason. They still think it was Emu that killed him. She's not Emu. Okay, just letting y'all know she is not Emu, so don't get it twisted. Emu can turn into a dragon. Another panel you guys missed when all of the fucking Gorosei changed. You can see all 4 Gorosei, and then you can see Emu climbing down the rope thing where he was standing. Very clearly a dragon. So there's some level of dragon lore within the Holy Knights and Marijois in general, and I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see where that goes. So with the Holy Knights talk aside, with that aside, let's put together some versus battles, okay? The first versus battle I really want to get into that I thought would be fun is Kuro, Captain Kuro of the Black Cat Pirates. One of the strongest pre-time skip individuals in my opinion. He was untrained, super genius, 1,000 plans, never failed, made piecework out of Morgan, made Morgan look like a fucking bitch, hypnotized him to be the strongest Marine. Let me reiterate that. The strongest Marine. Morgan was hypnotized to become a captain with his own Navy base, which is usually headed up by a Vice Admiral, and at the very lowest we've seen, a Rear Admiral in canon. Okay? Morgan is essentially the only canon captain we've seen that has his own Navy base outside of Smoker. Smoker had his own base, but Smoker was the exception to the rule and didn't get promoted to Vice Admiral, even though he had a Logia, because he was going against the law and hunting down too many pirates. Smoker was kind of in his own class with the dog of the Navy, just hunting people down left and right. Whereas not Morgan's, but Captain Morgan was just insane and so ruthless to the point where they were like, yeah, let's give him his own base because he's crazy and very strong. So Kuro dispatched him. Kuro is no joke. Kuro also had the beginnings of Rokushiki that he learned naturally, which is insane, and it was devastating matched with his cat claws. Now, against somebody, I picked this character because I thought he was interesting. He only shows up once. And the one time he shows up, he's really an ass character. He's so booty. He stinks. Nobody liked him. But I liked him because he's a side character that doesn't get enough light. And I love those guys. So I'm going to bring some light onto Neuro. That's right. We have Captain Kuro versus Neuro. Now, who is Nero or Neuro? Nero, as I'm going to call him now, is essentially the he was kind of a swabby for CP9. He was a tryout. He made it through the beginning stages, but he really wanted to prove himself, and he got dispatched by Frankie. Okay, Centaur Frankie proved too powerful for Nero, but Nero had some good skills. He had the crazy Tempest kicks that could slice through the C train. He had finger pistol, Soru, but he didn't have Tech Eye. Tech Eye is what ruined him. If he had Tech Eye, he would have been a really bad match for Frankie. I'm going to move my mic over because I'm afraid it's too close. So, Kuro versus Neuro is pretty even. Okay, you have a captain worth 16 million berries prior to finding out he was still alive. They thought he was dead and Kuro still had that bounty. Versus Neuro, a CP9 intern. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. A CP9 intern versus a notorious captain. Now, a little bit of backstory about Kuro. I want to go back to him because there's something else I would like to reiterate or restate, essentially. Kuro is so badass that he was world renowned as a rookie pirate with 16 million berries. Okay, that was his first bounty that we know of. Now, what's interesting is I rewatched One Piece, and essentially, Kuro of 1,000 Plans was super notorious because of the short duration that he was a pirate captain. He wasn't a pirate captain for years. He was a short-term captain that got bored of it relatively quick, as you do when you're a super genius. And when he died, the 16 million berry bounty just got buried with him. He was probably presumed dead again for 4 or 5 years since he was a butler with Kaya. So, in that time frame of Kuro being an insane pirate, his bounty would have gone up to about 80 to 90 million. How do I know this? I already asked ChatGPT. So, Kuro evaluation is a 80 to 90 million range pre-time skip. Neuro's got his hands full, okay? So don't think that Neuro having Rokushiki is going to put him on a similar level to Kuro just right off the rip. Now let's see what ChatGPT has to say. I think Kuro would win personally. And sorry, my cat just nuzzled up. What's up, Pip? But Neuro has a shot. That's why it's an interesting fight. So let's see what ChatGPT has to say. I'm going to check the chat real quick. I left my phone off. I haven't seen what you guys have been saying, so give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. Why can't I bring it up? Weird. Very, very strange. Okay, let's see here. All right. Sorry about that for you. I see you're in there now. You said, how are you? I'm doing great, man. Everything's good. Thank you for the naming. Thank you. Yeah, I'll address all those questions. Those are great questions. But I'm going to continue on with ChatGPT, asking it, who would win against Kuro and Neuro? So, to give you a better comparison between Kuro and Neuro, I'll need to know what series or context. Fair enough, fair enough. Let me retype this. Kuro versus Neuro tournament. Is this spelled with an A? I'm not very good at spelling, guys. My bad. Tournament style. Let's see. Tournament style from One Piece. Who wins? Worth the water. Let's see. Let's see what ChatGPT says. I think, again, Kuro pretty much dispatches this guy relatively easily, but you never know. So, ChatGPT says, Kuro, title, former Black Cat Pirates captain, stealth, speed, Shakushi, silent steps, and cat claws. Yep, we know all about that. His strengths, high speed, strategy, deception, weaknesses. His Shakushiki technique makes him temporarily lose control. Yes, he is fragile because of his mental state. Yep, Very true. Feats nearly wiped out Syrup Village. Solo outwitted Marine HQ to fake his own death. He did. He also beat Captain Morgan. That should be noted. Neuro, rookie CP9 agent, uses 4 of the 6 Rokushiki techniques. Soru, Geppo, Tekai. So he did have Tekai. I was wrong about that. Thank you, ChatGPT. And thank you, Chat. I see you in there. Strengths, government trained, fast. Yeah, got stomped by Frankie. Yes, he did. Combat analysis, very fast for Kuro. Neuro's on a similar level with better precision, versatility. Neuro can fly, speed, slashing, sure. Intelligence, yeah, very true. Neuro has Tech Guy to reduce damage. Kuro has no defense. Very true. Kuro is only offensive. So that's a very good point. Winner, ChatGPT says Neuro. I disagree with ChatGPT here. I disagree. And I'll tell you a few reasons why, but let me read the chats real quick. So, Foyer, what's up, Foyer Red? You're my favorite, by the way. I really appreciate you. You're always in my comments. I love you. So, great, by the way. Killingham, Gunko, and Summers were the Holy Knights I mentioned earlier. Thank you for their names. How do you know that Dory and Bragi don't have Conqueror's Hockey? I don't. And in fact, that would be interesting because I don't think, other than Big Mom, if you can even consider her a giant, she's not, obviously, but if you wanted to consider anyone, I think Kaido's the closest one to a giant having Conquerors. I don't think we've ever seen a giant have Conquerors yet, outside of Loki, obviously, spoiler alert. But Dory and Bragi very well could, and I want them to. I want them to be the apex because of how early on we saw them. If they're the apex of giant strength, I'd be so happy, right? Giant Warrior Pirates, original captains, fantastic comeback into the series. We forgot all about them, and the next thing you know, they're charging up that fucking attack. The God Smite of just giant joy, just flying at Kid and dispersing his crew in an instant. Fantastic. Yeah, Dory and Bragi very well likely have higher hockey techniques. And you know what's interesting? With the introduction of Rio, I wouldn't be surprised if there's new techniques revolving around hockey. I wouldn't be surprised if hockey isn't just as linear as we thought it was, where it's like you have armament, you have conquerors, you have this. It could be different facets of how to utilize hockey. I think that'd be really interesting because Rio is essentially taking your spirit and projecting it in a filament around the body so that it projects outward. And you can coat yourself in hockey, whereas armament was legitimately hardening your body. So, with that being said, we later saw in the fight against Luffy and Kaido that Luffy figured out that you could do Ryo hockey, but infuse it with Conquerors. And you can infuse your weapon with Conquerors. And so Luffy figured that out slowly but surely. So, you know, I would like to see Dory and Bragi have some facet of something that's on par with Conquerors. It doesn't have to be Conquerors for me, to be happy. I could easily see them having something similar. Anyway, Foyer Red says, I believe Neuro would likely win as he knows Iron Body and Kuro's claws would easily break. That's true. That's so true. That's so true. The thing is, though, is like, with Tech Guy, from what I've seen, you can't use Iron Body and move at the same time. If we look at Blueno, for example, who was the quintessential user of Tech Guy amongst the original CP9 members, he had to stay in one spot and tank rounds before he could move again. And that's why he took Gear Second. It wasn't just like an egotistical statement to Luffy, I'm going to take whatever you got. No, to use his Tech Guy, he loses flexibility. And so, same thing with Neuro. If Neuro's, combating Kuro's speed with speed, he's going to be just as vulnerable as Kuro is. And at that point, Kuro is essentially just a blinding blade of death, whereas Neuro is going to have to combat it with Tech Guy by not moving. So I'm sure Kuro, with his higher intellect and knowledge, could probably figure out a way to dispatch of Neuro's Tech Guy relatively easy. So I don't know. It's just a cool what if. I don't know. I definitely want to fight for Kuro, but I think you're right. I think Neuro does win at the end of the day, unfortunately. But I thought it would be a good battle nonetheless. Now, we could make it interesting, right? If you wanted to give Kuro Rokushiki, it would be an incredible matchup. And again, due to experience, I think Kuro would win. But ChatGPT is right. The comments have spoken. Only Jabra could move. That makes sense. That makes sense to me because Jabra needed to have something to put him at number 3 outside of a carnivorous zone. All right. Speaking of Jabra, the next one on my list is Jabra versus Dalmatian. Now we're getting somewhere, and not just Jabra, but Jabra CP0, who likely has hockey. Now I want to see this. I want to see this, right? You've got a dog versus dog battle. So let's see who wins this one. You're diving deep now, and I like it. Thank you, ChatGPT. Thank you. So, character overview. We know Jabra. Jabra's dope. Former CP9 agent, possibly CP0 now, hinted but not confirmed. Post time skip. Yes, we saw it in a Viva card. Are Viva cards trustworthy? No, they're not. Not at all. Devil Fruit, Inu Inu no Mi, Model Wolf. Dope. I would love that Devil Fruit. Rokushiki, all 6 techniques, especially Tekai, Kempo, hybrid martial artist, combining defense and offense. Very cool. Strengths, speed, deception, close quarter combat, enhanced physical stats. Of course, he's a carnivorous zone. He gave Sanji a hard fight. Unfortunate, skilled liar and strategist in battle. Sure. Dalmatian has less feats than Jabra, unfortunately, but I don't think that the feats that Jabra has overpowers what Dalmatian's capable of. Because we saw Dalmatian absolutely almost obliterate Luffy. Like, if Luffy stayed in there with Dalmatian, he would have been totally boned, because Dalmatian was piecing him up with that finger pistol. Some pretty crazy stuff. That being said, Dalmatian's a vice admiral, possibly has hockey. Or excuse me, we know he has hockey because he's a vice admiral, possibly has all Rokushiki techniques. So, he's also a higher echelon of the vice admiral. So we saw when we were introduced to Pomsky, the other dude with the large forehead, and those vice admirals on Egghead, that there is a hierarchy amongst vice admirals. And at the apex of it, Doberman and Dalmatian, the one dude with the sword, I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, but he's dope. Everybody loves him. He has that mohawk. Those guys that we saw with the Buster Call are essentially the highest echelon of Vice Admirals. And then there's lesser Vice Admirals below them that are essentially rookies amongst the ranks of Vice Admirals. So anyway, let's see what ChatGPT has to say. So it says Dalmatian is the winner. Despite Jabra's speed, techniques, Vice Admirals are a leap in tier. I don't agree with that. I think CP9, that's a crazy statement, because I think CP9 is actually comparable to Vice Admirals. What do you think, Foya? What do you think, Foya Red? Do you think that ChatGPT's right here? Do you think that being a Vice Admiral is a tier above CP9? I don't know. Foya Red says, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. Referring to Kuro versus Neuro, I'm assuming. There is a bit of a delay, so I apologize. But he also says, I think Jabra could win, but I haven't seen much of Dalmatian. True. Dalmatian's cool, right? The little bit we've seen is mostly going to be attributed from Marineford. There are some filler instances that we've seen Dalmatian fight, like Film Z, Stampede, and Film Gold. Dalmatian shows up in all 3 of those at some point or another. And he's shown fighting. He usually is shown using his finger pistol, which is his signature Rokushiki technique. But in terms of that, it essentially comes down to hockey versus Rokushiki. And actually, I don't know if I agree with ChatGPT on this one either. I think Jabra has a legitimate argument for besting Dalmatian, but it's so close that it's argumentative. That's why I think this would be a good fight. I think Dalmatian would win only because of experience. I think Jabra doing missions that are mainly espionage-based, assassination-based, you're fairly limited on experience, whereas Dalmatian's on the front lines, he's giving orders. It would just come down to, it wouldn't even come down to zone, because they're so similar in zone type that it's just, yeah, I don't know who would win. I guess I'm gonna have to agree with ChatGPT. I think Dalmatian took it. I don't know. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look. Let's do expound. Let's use that word. Expound! Give us more information. Do you think it'll understand PLZ? Expound, please. Let's deep dive. Alright, Jabra, possible CP0. Yep. Known abilities. Devil Fruit, we know his Devil Fruit's the wolf. Grants grants enhanced speed, strength, reflexes, and durability. We know this. Zone users can shift between human, beast, and hybrid forms. Jabra uses his hybrid form best for combat results. Well, guess what? So does Dalmatian. That's what makes this thing close. Rokushiki Master, master of all 6 techniques. Soru, Geppo, Tekkai, Shigan, Ryaku, and Kami-E. Dodging with fluidity is Kami-E. We only saw it with that one dude with the big mouth that's an owl. Tekkai Kempo, Jabra's unique fusion style. This is cool. Uses Tekkai even while moving to stay fast and tanky. See, that's what Foya Red was saying before, where I stated that if you use Tekkai, you can't move as well. Well, essentially, Jabra's the only one among CP9 that could. He's cunning and deceptive, fakes vulnerability in battle, and plays opponents on emotions because he's weak physically. You don't do that unless you cannot handle a fisticuff fight, okay? That being said, his limitations are no Haki, at least in canon, defeated by pre-time skip Sanji, who didn't have Haki at the time, and CP9 ranks below Vice Admirals in the government's power structure. I don't know that they do. I don't know where that information has come from. I don't believe that's true. I think CP9 is just different. I don't think it necessarily ranks below or above Vice Admirals, because if that's the case, then you're essentially saying that Spandam is put on the same level as a vice admiral when in fact he was a special agent that was gifted power from influence of his father. So, whatever. We're going to move on from that and pretend like ChatGPT knows what it's talking about here. Dalmatian, Marine Vice Admiral. Not just a Marine Vice Admiral. This is an important distinction that not many people make. He is a Marine HQ Vice Admiral. So that's what I was saying. If you're an HQ Vice Admiral, you're putting a tier above other Vice Admirals. So he's a Marine HQ Vice Admiral. It's an important distinction to make when we're talking about versus battles here. Known abilities, Human Beast Hybrid, same as Jabra with the boost in strength, toughness, and recovery. His rank is Vice Admiral, which means he does have Haki Mastery, armament mastery, and observation mastery. Mastery is used loosely here. They can mastery over the basics of utilizing these skills, not that they're masters in Haki of itself. That being said, he commanded experience and battle tested in Marineford, which was called the War of the Best, by the way, lads. He fought in it. His physical power, even the mid-Vice Admirals are tough enough to clash against the New World Pirates and Giants. Likely trained in Rokushiki, at least partially. He is shown using Geppo and Soru. Limitations, no name techniques or major feats, right? Not a standout Marine character, so his ceiling's limited. No, there is standout moments. He stabbed Luffy, okay? He almost killed Luffy. Him and that other dude. Momonga. Momonga's the other dude I was thinking of. Momonga slashed him, and then Dalmatian finger pistoled him. Anyway, battle scenario round 1, technique versus power. Jabra opens with Suru and Shigan Rush. Dalmatian's Haki, hard counters Jabra's Tekkai defense. This is huge. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So we're learning that Haki can essentially counteract his defense. Very cool. Any strikes Jabra lands with Shigan, Ryakyu will lack the force to penetrate Haki reinforced skin unless perfectly placed. I don't know. There's nowhere that I have seen in canon, at least, that states that Haki, especially armament Haki, is stronger than Tekkai. I think they're just different techniques altogether. I should make a whole video about that, actually, because one is martial arts based and training based. The other one you either have or you haven't awakened it yet. Round 2, speed and mobility. Both can use Geppo and Sora, so to me, point talking about this, Jabra might outmaneuver slightly thanks to Tekkai Kempo's speed, defense, fusion, but it's not enough to lay in finishing blows. I kind of agree with that, sure. Dalmatian goes Zone Hybrid, tanks Jabra's attacks. One Haki-infused punch or blade strike from Dalmatian could break Jabra's Tekkai, only using ChatGPT headcanon, of course, and do serious damage. If Dalmatian has observation Haki, which we know he does, Jabra's deception tricks won't work. I think there's a misunderstanding of what observation Haki does, but sure. Why not? We'll play along. Final verdict, winner, Dalmatian, high difficulty. Dalmatian's Haki, superior strength, and government rank give him the upper hand, while Jabra is fast, skilled, versatile. He's ultimately an agent tier fighter. Yikes. Calling CP9, which is the highest authoritative espionage undercover agent organization, calling them agent tier, I feel like that's cutting CP9 short. I feel like CP7 or 6 would be agent tier. CP9's a cut above the rest. While Dalmatian is military elite, someone expected to lead squads into war against Yonko commanders. Unless post-time skip Jabra is confirmed as a CP0 member with Haki, he simply does not scale to Vice Admiral in direct combat. Don't know, what do you guys think? What do you think, Foya Red? Right now, Foya Red says Jabra is CP0 now, right? That would make him stronger, and he would likely know Haki based on the fact that Lucci and Kaku know it by now. And maybe he's awakened his DF. I totally agree. I think Jabra is kind of like the mysterious one, and it's not... I don't like that it says, that ChatGPT says that Jabra joining CP0 is not canon. It is canon. We saw all of them during that cover page, where they're essentially wearing all white suits. So, from there, you can infer that he's essentially joined CP0. So, anyway, mute point, Dalmatian wins, I suppose, according to ChatGPT. Do I agree with it? No. No, I think it would be a tie, to be honest with you. I think this one's too close. I don't think that it's as even as ChatGPT, or as uneven as ChatGPT's making it, so it doesn't really matter. But moving on, Foyer Red, my favorite subscriber. I don't have favorites, but I do. What fight would you like to see? What fight would you like to break down here? Pick two of your most favorite characters and break them down. Tell me who your two favorite characters are. I know you like Noland. I know you love Noland. Maybe we could get Noland versus Rayleigh or something and argue with ChatGPT. What would you like to see, Foyer? I'll wait on your response here because I know there's a little bit of a delay. I want to see what you're thinking, where your mind's going, you know? While you're typing it up in chat, I'm going to go grab another drink. I'll be right back. All right. Let's see if Foyer Red said anything exciting here. He'd like to see Noland versus Colum. Oh, man. I don't remember who Colum is. Let's take a look and see who this cat is. Let's take a look. I don't remember who this individual is. Let's see. One Piece. Let's take a look here, chat. Don't look at my search history. I'll cry. Is this who we're talking about? Let's see. I just want to make sure I have the right person here. We're talking about this young lady that's on Orlumbus's crew? Or are we talking about somebody different? Did I spell it right? I did spell it right. I don't remember who Colin is. Unless it's Columbus here. Not too sure. Not too sure. But let's type it into ChatGPT and we'll see. Maybe Foyer will tell us who we're talking about. Oh, the giant. Okay. So it's the kid's giant. That's right. Scopper Gabon's kid. Mr. Yaz kid. So this kid. That's who we're talking about right there. Look at his handsome little face. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah, I don't know why either. I don't know why it showed Columbus, but you know what? We're moving on from it. Let's ask ChatGPT, how about... I'm going to let you know right off the bat, I think Noland would win. I got to be straight up honest with you. I think Noland is so underrated and underhyped as a One Piece character, and he essentially gave us the background into Joy Boy, right? His story essentially made us believe in Joy Boy, right? And like Calgara versus Nolan, that was a whole thing. I don't know. I feel like Nolan had hockey too. I feel like Nolan did have hockey. I feel like it was a thing then and he was just OP. But we just haven't seen it yet. We just haven't seen it yet. I truly believe that Nolan would have been a cooler character to kind of teach Luffy with shenanigans using Toki's Devil Fruit to teach Luffy about Ryo hockey than, say, Rayleigh. To be honest, but that's just my honest opinion. How cool would it be for the Straw Hats to meet Nolan? That would be so cool. Anyway, without further ado, Nolan versus Column, the Giant Kid. That's a rare and fascinating matchup. Nicely done for you, Red. Nicely done. That's a rare and fascinating matchup. Let's analyze Mont Black Nolan versus Column from One Piece in a 1v1 style showdown. See, it says Columbus. I don't know that this is going to be the right person that we're breaking down here, so I'm going to have to correct ChatGPT into the One Piece lore. Mont Black Nolan, just as a refresher for you banana heads who aren't real One Piece fans, who might have forgotten who Mont Black Nolan was. He was essentially known as the Liar. He was a famous explorer and warrior from 400 years ago. His affiliation was with the Levenel Kingdom. His reputation was a national hero turned infamous due to the misunderstandings surrounding the Golden City of Shandora. His strengths include incredible physical strength, able to one-shot a giant sea king with a single strike of his axe. I don't know that he ever used an axe, actually. I think he used a sword, but it's cool. Fearless, fought side by side with Shandorians and to defend Shandora. Cool, very cool. Master axe fighter, known to be incredibly skilled with a large battle axe. Natural born leader, intelligent, honorable, and respected amongst the world. His feats: he killed a massive sea monster, pretty dope. It was actually the giant snake, which was revered as a god in the land of Shandora, so that was pretty cool. Fought alongside Calgara and Shandorian warriors as equals. Survived intense jungle and sky island environments. Weaknesses: lacks hockey. It was 400 years ago before it was widespread understood. No devil fruit powers that we know of. Shoot, I went too far down. All right. Columbus / Column, Commodore Column. Columbus is a minor anime only or filler character, depending on the source. Columbus is listed as a female pirate. Nope, wrong person. Revise it, ChatGPT. Revise it. Nolan versus Garp. He did use a sword and did not use an axe, right? That's what I'm saying. ChatGPT is an idiot. Stinky ChatGPT, get out of here. We're going to do Nolan versus, and get ready for this, I think this would be a legendary fight. I think this fight would be incredible. I think this is kind of like, you know what I'm saying? I want to see Nolan versus Crocodile. No, I'm kidding. Crocodile would stomp him. No offense to Nolan. It's just Crocodile's insane. Who would be a good matchup? Speaking of Columbus, what about Orlumbus? Now, that's a good fight. So, it might seem that Nolan would win on a surface level look, but Nolan, in my mind, is overhyped, in my opinion, because it's my own head. He's, in my head, I put Nolan super high up because of how much I appreciate his lore. But in reality, Nolan probably doesn't have that many feats that I'm making him out to have. And Orlumbus has a lot more feats that people don't give Orlumbus credit for. He threw Zoro at Mach 3, dude. Like, Orlumbus is strong as fuck. He has a fleet of like 5,000 men or something crazy. So this is the fight that I think would be interesting. They're both explorers. They're both strong. They're both good matchups. Ignore the axe shit that ChatGPT is about to spew. He's wrong. But anyway, we already went over Mont Black Nolan, badass. Said was a liar. It was a lie, ironically. Crazy in pure combat. Chop down trees like nobody's business. Dope guy. Now let's talk about Orlumbus. He's the captain of the Yonta Maria fleet. Fleet Admiral of the Yonta Maria Pirates. He has a bounty of 148 million berries as of the end of Dressrosa. His battle style is using giant cannonballs, very similar to Garp. As weapons, raw strength-based brawler, commands 4,300 men across a huge fleet, not irrelevant in a 1v1, sure, but still shows his prowess as an individual. Known for throwing people like baseballs, launched Idio into the air like a cannonball, notable feats, part of Luffy's grand feat. That's not a feat, that's just something he is. Helped in a final charge during Dressrosa, still not a feat. Destroyed an entire pirate base with a barrage of cannon fire. Yes, that's a feat. He also threw Zoro at Mach 3 to cut down Pika. Arguably gave Zoro the power to cut down Pika. Okay? Strength and power, the one-on-one analysis. We're looking at Noland casually cleave through monstrous beasts, solo jungle survival, and wartime combat. Orlumbus has tremendous physical strength, enough to throw people like artillery, but hasn't directly beaten any strong opponents on screen. His feats scale above East Blue tier pirates, and possibly pre-time skip veteran level strength. Sure. Edge to Noland. The edge goes to Noland right now for your red. Let's see what happens next. Combat skill. Noland is an expert. Excuse me. I thought they were going to bring up the axe again, so I stuttered. Noland is an experienced life-or-death warrior, tactical, battle-hardened, and likely has better one-on-one instincts. Orlumbus relies more on brute force and intimidation. His fighting style is exaggerated and comical, throwing people. Yeah, very effective. If he has the ability to do it, of course he's going to do it. The edge still goes to Noland. Orlumbus is a showy pirate captain, not a master duelist. I can agree with that, especially after seeing so much depth in the Kalgura flashback when Noland and Kalgura fought day in and day out. It was beautiful. We got to see more of the fighting style, so crazy. And Foya Red brings up a good point. He says Noland did move an earthquake, though. Yeah, he did, which is insane. Orlumbus is also crazy strong, though, so I don't know. It seems like ChatGPT's giving it to Noland, though, and I don't think Noland beats Orlumbus that easily. I agree with ChatGPT that Noland would win eventually because of the speed blitzing, but I think if Orlumbus grabbed Noland, what is Noland going to do? Like, Noland cannot overpower Orlumbus. That's not an option. Noland could out-combat Orlumbus with, like, movement patterns that Orlumbus doesn't deal with or is too slow. So yeah, speed blitzing would be Noland's name of the game and could beat him with that. I don't think moderate diff. No, I think it's high diff. I think it's high diff for sure. I don't think it's mid diff. But whatever. For your red, your boy got the dub. That's all I gotta say. Your boy got the dub. Man, that's a crazy fight. I would love to see that fight, to be honest with you, because Orlumbus really needs more screen time. He got his old, serial cover story, and that was a lot of fun and exciting and hilarious, watching his daily routine and seeing how disciplined Orlumbus is. Noland's one of those characters that is so influential in the world of One Piece. Outside of the world of One Piece, a lot of people forget that he played such a crucial role into introducing the concepts that we're seeing now. So I appreciate Noland. I love Noland as a character. I'm so glad they put him in One Piece Bounty Rush. He's a fun character to use. It's fantastic, really. I'm very happy that they did that. But moving on to our next battle. This is going to be our final battle of the evening. How long have we been streaming here for? Don't know, don't care. It's been long. Who would Crescent Moon Galley beat? Oh, Foya Red coming in hot. Dude. Crescent Moon Galley. Now, obviously, I have him as my profile picture on YouTube. He took special interest in my heart because technically he's the first pirate villain we see in the canon of One Piece during the original Romance Dawn. If you read the one-shot monsters, Crescent Moon Galley is actually the pirate that Ryuma strikes down. And then it's revised to be a pirate that Luffy dispatches in the beginning of Romance Dawn. And, if you ever read the original chapters of Romance Dawn, it's really weird. But Crescent Moon Galley is a very, very influential character within the One Piece world. Us One Piece fans, us diehard One Piece fans, we know Crescent Moon Galley. They even put him in the live action, which was super cool. That being said, Crescent Moon Galley is literally a pirate. He has no feats whatsoever, and I would put him up against Peachbeard. Peachbeard is another dude that's just a pirate. So let's do this. Let's make it interesting. Let's make it a gauntlet. We're going to do Crescent Moon Galley. Get this for you, Red. You're going to like this. Versus Blue Jam versus Peachbeard. Now, there is a pirate battle if I've ever seen one. Right? All of them relatively featless. All of them in a relative strength category of just being pirates. No hockey, no devil fruits, no crazy martial arts, just pure rum, ass, and poop deck. That's all they are. So let's see who's going to win this one. I actually think out of these three, Blue Jam would win because he's got the most recorded feats. But Peachbeard's up there too, bro. Peachbeard's up there. Let's see who wins. That's a spicy three-way pirate brawl. I wouldn't put spicy in there, but that's just me. Between three very underworld-esque characters from the One Piece world. Let's break it down. Combatants: Crescent Moon Galley affiliation, East Blue Pirate, Imposter, Straw Hat member, Impel Down escapee. That's great to know. So yeah, he did escape Impel Down, so that's incredible. Role part of Buggy's Bands of Misfits. I do remember something about that, so it's correct there. Uses 2 crescent moon-shaped swords, sickle-like. Very cool. Acrobatics, flashy swordplay, and deception. Ooh, survived Impel Down, Marine 4 War, most likely by luck and group protection. No significant solo combat feats. Blue Jam should be in a similar ballpark to Crescent Moon Galley there. Blue Jam Pirates East Blue, burning down the Great Terminal under noble orders, betrayed Ace Sabo and Luffy as kids, uses a sword, some strength-based move, feats, beat up Child Ace and Luffy pre-Gumu Gumu Awakening, tried to kill them in a collapsing inferno, and failed, overpowered by Dadan, who is no joke, by the way, for a mountain bandit wanted by the Coast Guard, fun fact. Downfall was humiliated by Ace with no real devil fruit or hockey. Power level slightly above average East Blue villain, lacks any strong feats. I'll be honest with you, I think Blue Jam gets stomped by Chew, but that's another conversation for another day. Peachbeard, affiliated by self-proclaimed Whitebeard Pirate, in name only. I do remember he did that. Yep, Pirate Captain under Blackbeard's franchise. Weapon, Sword or Club, depends on the depiction. Feats was chosen by Blackbeard to represent the new era of piracy, but only as a disposable thug. Immediately beaten and captured by the citizens of Luasia Kingdom after Bello Betty's revolutionary army. War cry, giving them more power. Easily intimidated and overpowered once real fighters showed up. Power level low tier, New World Pirate, stronger than East Blue fodder, but weaker among Blackbeard's crew, obviously, but still, I think, in contention against Galley and Blue Jam. So let's see. Battle analysis. Round 1. Galley starts with a showy acrobatics with his scythe sword, but his attacks lack stopping power. Blue Jam is brutal and street smart. Targets Galley first, seeing him as weak. Peachbeard observes and waits like the bitch he is. Blue Jam eliminates Galley. Whoa, ChatGPT. That's crazy. How does Blue Jam just cap Galley like that? He just, pulls out his pistol and just pong? No. Galley would definitely slice up Blue Jam at least a little bit, but it's fine. We're here for ChatGPT, not the other way around, so I guess Galley's eliminated already. That sucks. Round 2, Blue Jam versus Peachbeard. Blue Jam is scrappy but short-tempered. Peachbeard has a sheer brute strength, being the only one with New World scaling, even if low tier. Very true. That's a good point. ChatGPT can't argue with it because it's shenanigans. Blue Jam's weapon skills are mediocre. While he is vicious, he is not strong enough to match someone Blackbeard even temporarily trusted with territory. Ooh. Peachbeard overpowers Blue Jam, especially if he gets angry or serious. Okay. Wow, them is fighting words from ChatGPT. So in the final ranking, we have Peachbeard number 1, Blue Jam number 2, and Crescent Moon Galley as number 3. Very true from ChatGPT. Foya Red, right on the money again. Foya Red, if you guys can't see it in the chat because this is post, he put his money on Peachbeard and he was correct. Peachbeard, according to ChatGPT, wins. Low to mid diff. I don't think it's that low to mid, to be honest with you, because I didn't see anything from Peachbeard that would make him stronger and more brutal than the other two. That being said, he is a post-time skip character, and by headcanon, means that he's stronger than pre-time skip characters for reasons that I don't understand, that other people maybe do. That being said, I have a twist. Winner versus, you ready for this? Old meme. If you've been a member of my channel for a long time, you'll remember this meme, against Sarkis. That's right. Peachbeard versus Sarkis. Let's see. Frankie Family's the Destroyer Cannon. Oh, he thought I meant winner. No, we want Peachbeard versus Sarkis. Sorry, ChatGPT. I thought you knew what I meant by winner. No. Now that's a gritty pirate brawl. Peachbeard, Blackbeard's proxy thug, versus Sarkis, Bellamy's muscle. Both are low-tier pirates, but let's break it down. Who would win in a 1v1? We already went over Peachbeard. Let's give you a refresher on Sarkis, ladies and gentlemen. Now that's who I want to focus on. That's my boy. Affiliation vice captain of the Bellamy Pirates. Weapon spiked mace. Not at all. He uses 2 Kukuri knives. I'll actually show you what they look like right here. So Sarkis, known as Big Knife or Big Chop Sarkis, uses these 2 guys. These dudes I actually got for a video a while back to demonstrate kind of what Sarkis was about. Very cool weapons, top heavy, allows for, just as his name suggests, a massive chop coming down. So Sarkis is no joke. He was able to take on Roshio relatively easily until Bellamy ended up killing him. But let's see what ChatGPT has to say about the whole thing. Alright, so its analysis on Sarkis' vice captain. We just corrected he uses Kukuri knives, beat up Roshio the Executioner, a minor pirate, supported Bellamy in the brawl, has a bounty of 38 million berries, supported Bellamy in the brawl fight against Zoro and Luffy, blah blah blah. Who would win, my boy Sarkis, 38 million berries, or no name yucky Blackbeard Peachbeard? Let's see. Combat analysis strength, both are brutes. But Peachbeard is physically larger and looks more powerful in raw strength. Sarkis is scrappy, but Peachbeard's swings look like they would hit like a truck if they land. Well, luckily for us, looks are deceiving. Our little rubber boy is proof of that. Skills! Sarkis has better aim, control, and battlefield experience. I agree. He uses a mace. He doesn't. He uses Kukuri knives. In direct combat, has dueled other pilots, and likely fights smarter. Peachbeard relies on intimidation power. He lost rather quickly when he met organized resistance. The edge goes to Sarkis. Wow, I agree with this. This is the first one I agree with. Okay? Doflamingo member? Yeah, Foya says it correctly. You know, it's a Doflamingo member versus a Blackbeard member. Neither has tanked anything impressive, but Peachbeard took minor hits before capture. Sarkis was immediately disabled by a parasite string with no resistance. Yes, very true. Whatever. Peachbeard would have also been disabled by the parasitic strings. Like, that's ridiculous. Final verdict, Peachbeard wins? What? I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Peachbeard does not, like, why? Because he's a post-time skip character? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Sarkis was able to do acrobatics. He has more feats. He has more cutting power. Anyway, man, I am losing on the ChatGPT train today. I'm not doing good with these versus battles, man. I would have thought Sarkis would have won, to be honest with you. I thought Sarkis would have bagged up Peachbeard no problem, but that's just me. I have a better fun one. We're going to do Doflamingo, because this is how screwed up people are with their knowledge base of essentially what they think power strength, power development is. Excuse me one moment, somebody's at my door. I'll be right back. Gotta check on my door. In the meantime, Foya Red, think of some more characters. We'll keep this going. It was just my AC kicking on. False alarm. False alarm. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's see. So Foya Red says, lol, that's how ChatGPT is. Someone later in the series must be stronger. Yep, I agree. I agree. Silly, but at the end of the day, it's also not necessarily wrong. I want to see what your guys' opinion on this fight is, okay? Doflamingo versus Katakuri. In terms of struggle, I feel like Luffy struggled just as hard equally to both of them. And to be honest with you, Doflamingo might appear weaker to the naked eye. However, my argument for that is he actually dispatched Luffy easier than Katakuri did. So I want to see what ChatGPT thinks of this. They're both, in my opinion, Yonko Commander level. I would say out of all Yonko commanders, Katakuri is kind of the apex in my mind. Doflamingo is certainly on that level, okay? To give you an idea, the weakest Yonko commander I can think of would be Jack. Not Snack, because Snack's not active, so it definitely would be Jack. I think Doflamingo bodies Jack, no problem. Katakuri is another story. I do think Doflamingo would struggle, but the reason this fight's interesting is because it would come down to Devil Fruit, right? Katakuri would be able to see the future sight, but that doesn't mean shit when you have somebody that can command billions of physical items. Like the strings you cannot see are coming for you. And yes, Katakuri could turn into Mochi, but Haki infused strings will still do damage to Mochi. So I want to see who would win. Like, it's such an interesting concept. I think Doflamingo has a shot. Let's see what Foya Red says before I send this. He says, I'd say Katakuri wins, based on the fact Doflamingo does not have future sight, and Katakuri dodged the string. Though Dofi has manipulation to beat him. I agree. I think Doflamingo has the means to be able to beat Katakuri, but does he have the capabilities to beat Katakuri? That's what I want to know. Let's see. Now we're talking top tier Warlord versus top tier Yonko Commander. A worthy fight for headlines everywhere. Doflamingo, Heavenly Yakusha versus Charlotte Katakuri, Mochi Mochi user, and Future Sight God. Let's break this down into great detail. Hell yes. Time for some delicious character battles. Okay, character breakdown, Doflamingo. Title, former warlord, ruler of Just Rosa, underground broker named Joker. Devil Fruit, Ito Ito no Mi, Shrink Fruit. Can control razor sharp strings, puppet people, and even stitch his own organs. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Talk about grit. This dude's insane. Awaken turns buildings and environment into string. Insane the amount of string he can utilize. Haki, armament, observation, and Conqueror's durability. He was able to tank gear forth Luffy, Law's Gamma Knife, and he kept going. Insane. He's a tactical genius. Absolutely. Master manipulator, and trapped an entire nation. Insane. He's versatile fruit, ruthless and clever, can spam parasite control to control weaker minds. I don't even think that's true. I think he can control just about anybody. If he gets his strings around you, and I want to point to one instance where Doflamingo stopped Jozu. Keep that in mind. Jozu's a Yonko commander. Doflamingo stopped him with strings, okay? So it's not unreasonable to think that Doflamingo couldn't stop Katakuri if Katakuri doesn't know about Doflamingo's tactics. Now we look at Charlotte Katakuri, the Mochi Mochi Fruit user, strongest sweet commander and Big Mom's #1. Devil Fruit Mochi Mochi, special paramecia, functions like Logia, full body control of Mochi, mimicry, duplication, mobility. Can create powerful Mochi attacks and weapons like Buzzcut Mochi or Mochi Trident. I don't think his trident was made out of Mochi ChatGPT, but it's fine. Advanced armament Haki, Future Sight, Conqueror's Haki, durability, fought Gear 4th Luffy for 11 plus hours and stood, absolutely. I don't think it was that long against Katakuri, but I could be wrong. Tactical mind, calm, disciplined, reactive, doesn't lose its cool. Future Sight, Logia-like body, conquers coding, confirmed usage. Okay, I didn't know that. Fights with grace and focus. Can be caught off guard if emotionally unbalanced, like breaking into his donut menagerie. Alright, you don't do that to Katakuri. He gets a little angry. Fight analysis, let's get into it. Future Sight versus Parasite. Doflamingo's parasite strings would only work on weaker-willed individuals. Maybe. Katakuri's Future Sight makes it nearly impossible for Doflamingo to land a clean hit. The edge goes to Katakuri. Maybe. See, what I think about this is that it totally depends if Katakuri is aware of Doflamingo's powers, and that's something that's not stated by Oda. We don't know if the warlords have to disclose their powers to the world government or to the public. I know Crocodile did, but Crocodile was a local celebrity in Narbonne. I don't know that all warlords would do that necessarily, so it's interesting. Power output and endurance. Katakuri's Buzzcut Mochi and Conqueror's Coated Blows are devastating and scale higher than Doflamingo's output. I don't know that they do, because Doflamingo's giant strings, his fuck-off strings that he turned the ground into, were coded in Conqueror's Haki. So I don't think ChatGPT's correct here. Doflamingo has a lot more AoE awakening, sure, but Katakuri is built for 1v1s and will adapt. Sure, I agree with that as well. Doflamingo can stall and regenerate, but not forever. So the edge still goes to Katakuri. See, the parasite thing I disagree with, but we're moving on. His strategy and mental toughness. Okay, Doflamingo is cunning and cruel, but he gets rattled under pressure. No, the fuck he doesn't. When has Doflamingo cracked under pressure and done something that wasn't, like, I don't know. He doesn't crack under pressure. He had a ton of pressure and was fine and turned the whole island into a birdcage, which was a factory reset if he committed to it and only it. If Doflamingo removed himself from Dressrosa, had the birdcage going, everyone would have been dead. No cap. Katakuri is emotionally stable and fights with a calm, composed demeanor. Sure, unless you interrupt his donut eating time. Making fewer mistakes. Maybe. Hacks and utility, Doflamingo has more tricks, Katakuri has more consistency. Okay, I can agree with that. Final verdict. Katakuri wins, but high difficulty. Let me put in the rebuttal. I'm going to put in a rebuttal. Foyer Red said, good point. If Katakuri doesn't dodge the parasite strings, he would be cooked. Absolutely. I think ChatGPT will make Katakuri win based on him being a Yonko commander, but I think it would be close battle. I think it would be a close battle. Yeah, I agree. What about Dofi coding his strings in Haki? Because I don't think ChatGPT remembered that. Okay, ChatGPT doesn't say anything too incredibly groundbreaking here. Just confirms that he can do that stuff. Okay, so it says still a Katakuri win, but now it's a high diff to extreme diff. I agree with that. I agree that Katakuri could pull off the win, but it would be extremely difficult. And it would essentially turn out the same way. Like, this battle is essentially the Akainu versus Aokiji fight, right? Against the two admirals, one being lava, the other being cold, and them fighting, and then Akainu coming in on top with battle scars, same way with Aokiji. I think this is the same thing. I think both of them would essentially fight themselves into a stalemate where Katakuri is the last man standing, but has severe injuries from Doflamingo. So I think that's an interesting one. What I'm more curious about is a fight against Captain Morgan versus Roshio. Because I want to see, after this I'll ask the big question, but I want to see what Captain Morgan's bounty is, okay? So it says, great matchup, Captain Axiom Morgan versus Roshio the Executioner, both early era pirates coming from the Grand Line. Well, Morgan wasn't a pirate, but you get the idea. He was no good Marine. Captain Morgan, ex-captain, notable feats. We know who Captain Morgan is, okay? East Blue Mini-Boss. Wow, what a way to put down Captain Morgan. East Blue Mini-Boss is crazy, bro. That shit's crazy. The disrespect. Man. Irrelevant to real fighters, so cutting down Garp was irrelevant. Cutting down Garp was irrelevant. I mean, in hindsight it was, but still. That's crazy. Role pirate captain, known gambler and cheater. That's Roshio. Was beaten off panel by Sarkis. Bellamy's subordinate. Had a reputation in Jaya as a small-time pirate with no impressive feats. But he has a bounty of 42 million berries. So, we're going down a little bit. We're going down. Final verdict! Captain Morgan wins low difficulty. So Captain Morgan could take on a dude with 42 million berries according to ChatGPT. That's crazy to think about. Crazy. Let's see what Foya Red says. Foya said, I just want to let you know I have to leave around 10 minutes. No worries, brother. I'm going to keep the stream going a little bit longer. I've got a couple more fights in mind, and then we'll wrap up. Maybe even within that time. But anyway, I don't think Captain Morgan wins. I'll be honest with you. Captain Morgan, in my mind, caps out around the 30 million berries. Because Arlong, even though he was covered up a few times after escaping Impel Down for the first time, if you don't remember the Fischl Tiger flashback, all of the Sun Pirates were captured by Kizaru, who was a vice admiral at the time, and he was about to take them all in. And then Jinbei, through shenanigans, became a warlord, freeing them all, and it was all under wraps or whatever. And Arlong's original bounty was redacted, and I actually don't know if we ever saw Arlong's original bounty, but yeah, it was redacted. That being said, Arlong had a 20 million berry bounty, and that's only because of Nezumu. If you guys don't remember who Nezumi was, he was a little cat rat-looking dude. He kept Arlong under wraps best he could, even though they were so frantic as pirates. But he had a 20 million berry bounty, okay? Roshio would absolutely beat the fuck out of Captain Morgan with as high a bounty as he has, because not because of the bounty itself. The thing about bounties you have to keep in mind is they are reflective of strength because you maintain that standard. So bounty hunters who think they can take on somebody above 30 million berries will absolutely come looking for you, or at the very least you're going to take on bounty hunters who can hunt down pirates with 100 million berries or more, coming after the 42 million berry guy, because it's easy money, right? So yeah, I don't see Morgan taking out Arlong, and I don't see him taking out Roshio, but fine, whatever. We're moving on to the real cool one, okay? I just thought of this, but Sarkis, who uses Kurikuri knives, versus Helmeppo. This is interesting. Both use Kurikuri knives. Sarkis has more XP, which is true, he does. So let's see what ChatGPT says. This is a spicy matchup. Both characters sit in the elite henchman tier in their different eras of One Piece. Giving both Kurikuri knives and putting them in equal gear makes it grounded. Gritty duel. Let's get into it. Yes, please. My throat is getting tired. Matchup, Sarkis versus Helmeppo. Conditions, both use dual Kurikuri knives. Sarkis has more pirate combat experience. Helmeppo has had marine training post time skip. Yes, he has Soru and basic observation hockey. He doesn't have armament. Okay, keep that in mind. Sarkis, Bellamy's Pirates number 2, pre-gear era. First mate to Bellamy, cocky, loyal, aggressive. We know all this. One-shot Roshio the Executioner. That was a huge feat. One-shot at a guy with 42 million berries. Was fast, ruthless, and with basic... Nah, he didn't have basic physical combat power. He was advanced in physical combat power. Okay, Sarkis was able to flip through the air while chopping the monkey dude in half on Jaya. Okay, Sarkis is not a basic efficiency fighter. He is a high-tier pirate, essentially pre-time skip. Okay, I would put Sarkis in a class of his own, pre-time skip, because he outclasses a lot of the Baroque work agents. Okay, anyway, Helmeppo post-time skip. He's a sword unit member. Absolutely, he's a Marine captain. No, he's not. He is a commander. I think he's even a lieutenant commander. Doesn't matter. Sparred with Kobe in their time. Became vice admiral level by Egghead. According to data. That's crazy. No, sir, he didn't. What is that? Became vice admiral level by Egghead. Whoa. Whoa, dude. That's crazy. Wields Kirkies and cannon, non-cannon devil fruit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, non-devil fruit user skill based. Sure. Okay. Skill comparison. Here we go. This is cool. It actually has a grid here of comparison. So, Sarki's likely instinctual, formally trained. Sure. Self-taught brawler, Garp's regiment. Well, when you put it like that, more street fighting, pirate raids, marine missions, elite ops, unconfirmed, likely basic observation, agile pre-time skip speedster. Yeah. Faster, trained reflexes. Took a fall from Bellamy's spring powers. Survives real missions. That's a crazy comparison, too. Like, I'll be honest with you, even post time skip Helmeppo's not taking on basic Devil Fruit users. That's going to be reserved for people like Colby. Despite Sarkis having more experience as a pirate, Helmeppo's post time skip growth is too much to overlook. He had actual Kuriki mastery, not just swings hard. Sure, trained under Garp. Sure. Likely uses observation hockey. Absolutely. There you have it. And again, Foya Red is on the same page as ChatGPT. He says, I do believe Helmeppo wins pretty easily since he beat the pirates on Hachinosu, which is that's a good point. But I like to think that Sarkis is like, in terms of tiers, it's easy to overlook him. But when you think about it, you're looking at all of the Baroque Works agents. Sarkis falls somewhere underneath Mr. 2 and is above Mr. 3. I think Mr. 3 would lose against Sarkis, and I'm not saying that because Mr. 3's weak by any means. Mr. 3 would almost certainly win in any scenario that involves Sarkis being fooled in any capacity. But I think if Sarkis took the initiative, took combat directly to Mr. 3, Mr. 3's toast. That being said, Sarkis, it's weird to think that Helmeppo could beat Sarkis to me. Helmeppo has shown no incredible feats in terms of like fighting pirates. Sarkis is just in a class of his own in my mind, but that's because I'm a Sarkis fan. Anyway, moving on. Final fight. Who am I going to pick? Well, I think a really cool fight. Let's move away from pirates and marines. How about we look at Reverie fighters? How about we look at that? Because we just got done with Reverie a couple years ago. And who we saw was Chaka. Have a good one for you. Thanks for coming in. We have Chaka versus Dalton. Now, this is interesting. We have Chaka the Jackal. Chaka the Jackal versus Dalton the Bison. So the breakdown goes as follows. If you need a recap of who Chaka is, he's the Jackal, guardian of Alabasta, loyal to King Cobra. He's got the Inu model Jackal. He can turn into a Jackal. Surprising, known as the Jackal. He gains speed, sharp fangs, and claws, retains intelligence and hybrid and full beast form. He's a highly disciplined fighter. His feat stood up to Crocodile despite knowing he was outmatched, fought an Alabasta rebellion, and skill and resolve never shown at full potential due to early arc scaling limits. Very true. If you guys didn't know, another fun fact about Chaka is that he is Alabasta's best swordsman. Just a fun fact. And I think it was even mentioned in like a a cover story that he could cut through steel as well. It was shortly after Mr. One was cut down. But anyway, that could be my own headcanon. But anyway, Dalton the Bison, former royal guard of Drum Kingdom, now it's King. Ushi Ushi no Mi, model Bison, herbivore's zone, traits massively physical strength, high durability, can take full cannon blasts to the face and still charge forward. His feats took on Wapple's army single-handedly, survived a point-blank cannonball to the chest, played a leadership role after Drum Island's collapse. Okay, so here we have a little stat comparison. Jabra takes the speed. Strength is above average for Jabra, but tremendous raw power goes to Dalton. Tough but not tanky, according to ChatGPT for Chaka. Yeah, I agree with all of these. Skilled swordsman, fast reflexes, brute force combatant, yes, yes, and more. Yes, who wins? Man, I love it. Yeah, Chaka is one of my favorite characters in all of One Piece. I have a soft spot for dog zones in general. I think it's fun seeing them. And not only that, I do agree that Chaka would win. Number one, it comes down to skill, right? Dalton has very little skill, although his shovels that he uses as blades, insane. Absolutely crazy. I can't believe that that's overlooked. That being said, Chaka would definitely win because it's Chaka, dude. Chaka speed blitzed the hell out of Crocodile and sliced him. I see no difference in Jabra versus Dalton. So it's unfortunate. What's going on? Kong action. He says, I think Chaka wins. Outskills Dalton in every capacity that isn't brute force and endurance. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. I just thought it would be an interesting matchup. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. I just wanted to come on here talk about One Piece. I started off talking about the Holy Knights, and now we went into versus battles. We found out that Doflamingo cannot, in fact, stand up to Katakuri like I thought. Apparently, my verdicts are hot takes. Also, I just want to get this out of the way before I make a full video about it. Did you guys know that Absalom, the guy that is surgically enhanced to have like lion gorilla parts, has bazookas strapped to his forearms, had the clear fruit, was killed by Katarina Devon, and his devil fruit was taken and given to Shiryu. Did you know that that dude had 138 million berry bounty? That's crazy. That's insane. Absolutely insane. So let's do this. For the last one, since we've got Kong here, let's see if Absalom could beat pre-time skip Arlong. Who would win? Who would win? Put it in the chat now if you're here. Who would win? Pre-time skip Arlong, or would it be Absalom? I love Absalom. A few fun facts about Absalom. Number one, Dr. Hogback, actually, while Absalom was still alive, such a cool character. Let me start over with that. So, to paint you a picture, you had a young Gecko Moria who was in the prime of his life, able to cut down some of the most gritty and ruthless pirates ever. He gets to Wano, uncovers Ryuma's burial tomb, gets the sword from Ryuma's grave. Can't remember. Shusui gets Shusui from Ryuma's grave. Now Moria's hyped. He's like, hell yeah, we did the thing. And then Kaido's there. Kaido's like, sup, bro? Why you taking that sword, dude? And Moria's like, fuck you. And then they get into a giant clash. Absalom was Moria's only survivor of that crew. And Moria took Absalom to Dr. Hogback to save his life. Absalom was the last remaining member of Moria's crew. Let that sink in. All of Moria's crew was killed by Kaido in the New World, except for Absalom, who was butchered to the point where he had to have animal enhancements by a surgical taxidermy genius, Dr. Hogback, which is why Moria sought out Hogback to begin with. Hogback was already a MADS member and a very famous scientist, and so Moria sought him out to save Absalom's life when Absalom was nothing more than a heaping flesh heap, dude. Absolutely insane. So when Absalom was saved, he was enhanced with lion, gorilla, and about 136 different animal parts along with their dermis. So his hide's very hard. He's got the hide of a rhino. Very, very strong individual. Absalom should mop the floor in my mind against Arlong. But I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Maybe shark skin's stronger than rhino skin. I don't know. All I know is that Absalom can turn invisible and has 2 bazookas on his fucking wrists, okay? Absalom's crazy and one of my favorite characters in all of One Piece, has 138 million berry bounty, and is a New York Times bestseller reporter, able to go undercover in places where no other pirate can go. Kong says, crews like Moria and Crocodiles seem kinda underwhelming at the time, but you can see they scale pretty decently with current events. They absolutely do. So, yeah, I love that you bring that up, Kong. I was going to talk about it in another video when I was going to make warlords are stronger than you think. Because they are. They are. As the story progresses and as we get more lore and deposition, we start to understand that warlords are really underwhelming when we look at it from the perspective of the future. Okay? But in their prime, they were all super rookies, if not higher. Okay? That being said, Moria was able to fight Kaido for days. Luffy couldn't fight Kaido for 10 minutes the first time he ran into him. So Moria was certainly in a class of his own. And again, Absalom was right there with Moria. Now, Absalom may not have been Moria's first mate at that time, but Absalom was the only one who was left technically alive to be saved. So, again, it's just part of the world building that I love that Oda puts into this. It's just such a minor detail that just, in my mind, could be overlooked so easily. And like with Moria's crew pre-time skip, or excuse me, it's just back in the day, not even pre-time skip. Moria was badass and strong, and he got complacent because he fought the top echelon. The top echelon was Kaido. He fought and lost, and he's like, well, I couldn't beat Kaido, so I'm not going anywhere, and became extremely lazy. Crocodile's a different story. Crocodile was incredibly strong as a rookie, and I think that's influence. I think it's devil fruit ability, but Crocodile says something really interesting that kind of blew my mind when I was rewatching One Piece for the 7th or 8th time. Crocodile says, Mr. One, let's go back to the good old New World. I think Crocodile was from the New World and made his name in the New World, which is crazy. Crazy. And, Crocodile not having Haki actually speaks to his arrogance because Haki is a manifestation of will. Maybe Crocodile threw away his Haki for his own arrogance. Maybe his arrogance just outweighed Haki. I'm just not going to use Haki. This dude's underwhelming. Fighting Luffy, Crocodile's just like, no, I'm not going to use Haki. I'm just going to fight this kid. I don't need to use Haki. And then just gets curb stomped by Luffy because of his arrogance. I think that's where Crocodile is, and I think that's also where Moria can be placed too. I think they both can be placed in underestimating Luffy, underestimating this rookie. Put Kid or Law up against Crocodile pre-time skip. Crocodile stomps the shit out of either of them, okay? Put, I don't know, fucking Arouge up against Crocodile. What is Arouge gonna do? Retribution! Punch a hole through Crocodile? Pre-time skip before Haki? Yeah, because Crocodile's made of sand. And then Crocodile with his right hand would suck all of that big juicy moisture out of those ginormous muscles of Arouge and make Arouge just shrivel up into cardboard. So Crocodile is way more OP and suffers from the same thing Moria does, which is pre-time skip disease. Anybody who's pre-time skip, and we just talked about this, Kong, me and Foya Red, another one of my subscribers, we were just talking about how if it's pre-time skip, it's seen as weaker by default, even though that's not the case. Like Peachbeard won in our last versus battle because he was post-time skip. That was the only reason. That's the only reason Peachbeard won against Galley and Blue Jam. Even though all of their feats are fairly similar, somehow Peachbeard won only because he's post-time skip and is associated with Blackbeard. So anyway, Crocodile Moria, very strong. Yonko Commander level pre-time skip. Amazing individuals in the One Piece world. And that's what makes it so fun talking about them. Kong says Croc challenged Whitebeard and lost. But so did Ace, for argument's sake. Yeah, I mean, we also don't know what happened with that. We don't know that Whitebeard necessarily beat Crocodile in the way we think it went down. It could be something that like, I don't know, maybe Whitebeard embarrassed Crocodile by saving him. Like, we don't know the full scope of how Whitebeard insulted Crocodile. So that's something to keep in mind there. But I think Crocodile's just so much stronger than people give him credit for. I've made several videos about that. But we're going to see if Absolem has what it takes to beat Pre-Time Skip Arlong. So again, Absolem being medically enhanced with taxidermy, having the skin of a rhino, the muscles of a gorilla, the face of a lion, teeth of a lion, jaws of a lion, absolutely enhanced to the point where he's essentially the strongest mink, just with medical enhancements, versus Pre-Time Skip Arlong, who really doesn't offer as much as Absolem, in my opinion. He's just essentially a saw shark, and that's cool. He is very strong. He does have a bunch of strength feats, but I don't know that he can stack up against 130 million berry man. So let's see what ChatGPT thinks. Let's do this. Final fight of the evening. Absolem versus Arlong is gritty, underrated, and is a showdown between two One Piece villains with unique physical advantages. One is a fisherman powerhouse, the other is a modified stealth tank. Let's break it down. Absolutely. Let's see here. Absolem affiliation is the Thriller Bark Zombie General. He has body modifications, Beastman enhancements by Dr. Hogback, Lion Arms, Elephant Mouth, etc., etc. No, flip those, please. Anyway, Devil Fruit Tsukisuki Nomi gives him invisibility. Dual pistols, no. They're bazookas, ChatGPT. Change that. They're bazookas. Anyway, feats can carry and throw Sanji level fighters, sure. Has stealth assassination skills via invisibility. Physical durability, high enough to survive getting blasted by explosions. Managed to get close to Nami, Sanji, etc. in battle without detection. Sure. Arlong affiliation, ex-Sun Pirates, Arlong Pirates. Saw Shark, Fishman, 10 times strength of a normal human naturally. Teeth regeneration, uses them as weapons. Sword like Kiribachi. Sure. Overpowered Luffy in direct clashes until Luffy got serious. Yeah, that means he didn't overpower Luffy. Tore buildings apart with his bare hands, swims like a missile in water, water-based combat advantage, took bullets with ease, massive durability for East Blue Era. Combat comparison chart. Let's take a look. Beast enhanced, very high strength, naturally 10 time, monstrous. Yeah, I'd say so. Speed, average, above average, whatever. Faster in water, stealthy. So they're fairly even here when it comes to speed. Durability, very high with beast modifications, very high with fishman modifications. Hacks, invisibility. Arlong has nothing to combat the invisibility. Combat IQ, low to mid, reckless and pervy. Very true, but he has no reason to be a pervert when Arlong's there. He has no reason. Kong just said something. Let's see. In terms of this specific fight, they also seem to make the Sun Pirates, Tiger, Jinbei, and Arlong a pretty strong crew in the flashbacks, but I think Absolem wins. I agree with you. I think Absolem takes it, but let's see what ChatGPT says. Also, to entertain Kong's comment, and Kong himself, when you have the pre-time skip Sun Pirates, it's important to remember that Arlong's bounty went away. If you remember when Jinbei joined the Seven Warlords, the Sun Pirates were cleared of all charges, meaning Arlong could go free. That was the contingency of letting Arlong go when Kizaru, who was a vice admiral at the time, captured the Sun Pirates effectively. When Koala, they tried to return Koala to her homeland, and the humans called the cops on the fishmen. So just keep that in mind too, that all of the Sun Pirates, the former Sun Pirates, had higher bounties than they did post-time skip. Or in the modern One Piece era. Excuse me. So, fight dynamics. Absolem's advantages, invisibility is a major edge. I agree. Beast body durability lets him tank Arlong's hits. Yep, hit and run tactics, self-engaged plus range guns could wear Arlong down. Can lift heavy loads and smash walls easily, so raw strength is comparable. I agree. I think Absolem's strength is comparable to Arlong's. I think Absolem's one of the most underrated characters in all of One Piece. Close range monster. If he grabs Absalom, it's over. Kiribachi Sword could cleave through the beast's flesh. Aquatic terrain, if it's near water, gives Arlong a massive boost in speed. I agree. And plus, Absalom is a Devil Fruit user, so all Arlong has to do is drag him into the water. Fight's over. Insane. Smarter than he looks. Fought tactically against Luffy and used intimidation well. Very true, very true. Absalom wins. High diff. Why? Absolutely. All the reasons below. Firepower, stealth, and durability let him play the long game. Arlong can't beat what he can't see. Very true. And in a neutral setting, not underwater, Arlong loses his biggest movement advantage, so he's slower than Absalom. Absalom was set with heavy injuries. It's a brawl of brute force versus stealth, and Absalom beast enhancements tactics edge it out. Cool. Cool. So yeah, it was fantastic. I don't know what sniping version he's talking about. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. The Holy Knights, going way back to the beginning of this whole thing. The Holy Knights are a really cool addition to One Piece. I think it spices it up. That being said, moving on to our versus battles. All these versus battles, this is the only one I got correct. I thought for sure Noland would have beat I thought for sure Olympus could compete with Noland, but I guess not. I guess throwing a man at Mach 3 is not good enough to beat a liar, but it is what it is. Anyway, guys, Kong, Foya Red, and everyone else that came into the live feed, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching my videos. It means the world to me. Check out my greatest One Piece theory video. That video is still up, and it still holds. Essentially, the theory goes that Garp was actually a package delivered to Cross Guild to wipe him out. I think that'd be a perfect way for Cross Guild to end. I'd like to get more deposition on what Cross Guild is and their members, but if we don't and Garp wipes them out, that's dope. Look at that video, link in the description below. Kong, Foya Red, and everyone else, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned for it. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be about a lot of different stuff. I'm excited to see you guys there. I might do it as live streams instead, so look out for the titles. Subscribe to make sure you stay in the loop. I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you all.